It's a hard thing when a series you enjoy gets cancelled. Every week you look forward to seeing where the characters and setting will take you, and then one week it's just gone. Sometimes it's obvious that the axe is imminent, and sometimes it's a little more surprising. Either way though, it's far from a fun experience. In the case of 9 Dragons Ball Parade, it was pretty clear from early on that this series wouldn't have much of a chance. And it didn't. After 20 chapters and barely 5 months, 9 Dragons Ball Parade has been cancelled. There are a multitude of reasons for this, but before getting into them, I want to quickly talk about why I thought we might still have a chance for a 9th inning comeback. Ultimately, I was incredibly wrong, but it's still interesting to look at. Shonen Jump has some availability right now. Jujutsu Kaisen is on an indefinite hiatus, and with One Piece, we're lucky to get more than 2 chapters a month sometimes. 2 other series, I Tell C and Hard-Boiled Cop and Dolphin, have also been axed in recent weeks. Those absences ought to give Ball Parade a little room to heat up, right? Well, no, it got cancelled. I also thought that Jump wouldn't want to not have a sports series running, so maybe Ball Parade would have a little more leeway. I mean, there's Blue Box, which is a fantastic series with wonderful art and characters, but it's more romance than it is sports. So I thought maybe, just maybe, Ball Parade might have a shot of hanging around the big leagues of Jump's roster. Nope, swing and a miss. Team sports series oftentimes start off slow. They have a lot of players they need to introduce and develop in order to fill out a roster and get us into games. Eyeshield 21, Slam Dunk, and Haikyuu were all relatively slow to start, and they're considered the best of the best when it comes to Shonen Jump sports series. But they were given the opportunity to use those slow starts to develop their characters and teams. I thought it might get the opportunity to follow in the footsteps of its slow start predecessors, but everything they did was a pitch in the dirt for Jump. Ball Parade only even had like 2 color pages, and I do get it. With the aforementioned series, you had other storylines to grip you early on while you waited for things to get going. Haikyuu had Hinata and Kageyama's past, their rivalry, and reunion, alongside being presented with Hinata's goals. Slam Dunk had the comedy and air of mystery of Sakuragi's talents to keep you reading even before the basketball begins. Eyeshield, which was the closest in concept to Ball Parade with its need to recruit a team from scratch, just kind of did everything better all around. Ultimately, the poor handling of the recruitment arcs were probably the downfall of Ball Parade, especially in comparison to something like Eyeshield. Rather than give us additional characterization and eventual flashbacks, we got it all early. Flashbacks and world building are for series that have earned those chapters. We weren't there yet, and I think that might have killed any momentum. The first offender is Tsurugi. He was the first character to be recruited and is touted as an amazing power-hitting third baseman, but he quit baseball to help his struggling family run their toy shop. That's simple enough, right? Well, obviously not, as his recruitment arc lasts 4 chapters, which ends up being 1/5 of the entire series. That's kind of a problem. We didn't learn from this, however, and our next recruitment arc took even longer. 5 chapters to get Tsubaki fully on the team. He's a defensive shortstop. He doesn't need over a month's worth of chapters to get thrown onto the roster. While his recruitment at least involves actually playing baseball, it didn't really matter as the stakes were super low. We're 11 chapters in and have seen no signs of meaningful baseball. And, once again, this is supposed to be a baseball manga. There was just a lack of proper prioritizing overall. We start the series with baseball tryouts and the intentions to build a baseball super team that could compete with the best teams in all of Japan. But then we spent far too much time just to get the team from 2 players to 4. Halfway through the series and the roster wasn't even close to complete. At this point the writing was pretty much on the wall. Week after week, Ball Parade sat at the bottom of Shonen Jump's rankings, oftentimes being dead last in the table of contents. But the absolute final strikeout for Ball Parade came after the release of its first volume. After 1 week on the market in Japan, Ball Parade sold barely over 2,000 copies. A few weeks after that, it wasn't even charted because of how low the sales were. There were many desperate attempts to jump up Jump's rankings in the last month or so. We get a random cartoony old man villain that was grossly and hilariously out of place. We get a new player antagonist out of nowhere after building up several other rivals. Then, the remainder of the roster was just a panel of some guys saying, "Yeah, we'll play baseball even though we've never picked up a bat," just so they could start playing a big-time game. And, of course, the most desperate attempt to rise through the ranks, a time skip. And stupid me thought the time skip was a good thing too. I even said to myself, well, they were in middle school technically still. They needed a time skip so that the team could truly be ready to compete. 5 chapters after that, the series was cancelled. Don't come to me for business advice. As sad as it is to say, that's that. Not even a time skip and an actual baseball tournament could save this baseball series. Very few manga get to end things on their own terms, and even more rarely do you get an ending that's satisfying and universally praised. 9 Dragons Ball Parade will be no different. You know, I was preparing to end things on this poignant note, but there's something I forgot. It's something the actual series often forgot about too. The main character of the whole thing. Azukita had all the potential of being an interesting protagonist, and absolutely zero was done with him after the first chapter. And that was the biggest issue of all. Hinata, Sakuragi, Senna, they were all the focus of their series first and foremost early on. It was their story leading into their team's story. And then there's Azukita, an analytical catcher with the powers to scout like he was part of a professional front office. I mean, he basically knew every middle school baseball player in Japan, and their strengths and weaknesses. He was a character with an interesting concept. Despite your typical become national champion's goal, he had a quirk that really hasn't been done in a sports manga, and relates incredibly well to modern baseball. Yet we really see nothing from him. He ends up just kind of being another player on the team, and you rarely get to see his analytics in game because, once again, we never play baseball. In a baseball manga. So just like that, this series ends on a weak groundout. A forgettable lead character, poor plot priorities, abysmal sales, and a lack of baseball were just a few factors that brought us here. But, unfortunately, here we are, and after an antagonizing 5 months, we reach an inevitable defeat. I don't know what the future holds for sports series in Shonen Jump, but what I do know is that if you enjoyed this video, or even if you didn't, that you should subscribe to S-Class. Thanks for tuning in. We're outta here.